Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. South Africa's Science and Technology Minister Naledi Pandor has revealed that pilot plants are on the way for both platinum and titanium beneficiation. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer tells us more. Welcome, Martin.
Thanks, Shannon.
Now, Minister Pandor said Africa needed to make the best of its considerable resources while steering clear of the resource curse. What is the resource curse?
Well, I think Nigeria might be a good example. You know, they found oil in Nigeria. Wonderful. In the 70s. It's fantastic to get oil like that. It's going to bring in a lot of money into the country. But it strengthens the currency. So what it did, it damaged the cocoa and peanut business because there were plantations that were quite elaborate, but the price of these became too high because now suddenly your currency was underpinned by oil. And this is one of the elements that they call the resource curse. So you have a lot of people poor in your country and unemployed because you've got this narrow wealth that is linked to metals and minerals and hydrocarbons like oil. So she's saying, look, let's not do that in Africa anymore. You know, let's balance things. And the way to balance them is to create localization, what they call localization and beneficiation. That means you manufacture and you industrialize at home so that you're able to incorporate these resources into manufactured goods so that you try and avoid the resource curse. You've still got these issues of currency problems and that, but normally if you're competing in a manufacturing arena, it does less to lift your currency than just having single resources. So that's the plan. The plan is to try and use those resources, but use them to manufacture at home, use them to create a bigger industrial footprint, use them to have services, linkages, forward linkages, backward linkages, and do as much as you can.
So trying to avoid what happened in India, for instance, where they lost out on making steel, for instance. Yeah,
I mean, at this conference at which the minister spoke, there was a professor from India, from New Delhi, and he was saying for years, you know, the Indians sold their iron ore at a dirt cheap price to the Japanese, and the Japanese would then sell the finished products at like an infinitely high price back to them. And that is the story that a lot of the developing countries have had to suffer. You know, they send out very low-cost commodities and then have the job of having to pay for high-cost imports, particularly cars. And in this case, it was steel. So the Indians decided, no, hang on, let's try and make some of the steel ourselves, make some of our manufactured products from steel, rather than just give our raw material to the Japanese. And that was the point he was making.
What are some of the minerals with the most benefits?
Yeah, well, you know, we've sit here on a resource, platinum. It is troubled at the moment, but it's still a very real beneficial product, and it's where we're dominant. And along with chrome, because these days, you know, when you're mining the platinum, you're often also coming across the chrome seams. So there's quite a lot of linkage between the two, which is one of the impacts of the price, because people were selling that UG2, they were mining the UG2, getting the platinum, and then others were exporting that raw chrome, which pushed the chrome price down for the ferrochrome producers, again, adding value, and you're running into trouble. So it's quite a complicated setup, these overlaps, and you've got to work with them. But platinum, very much, you know, a possibility there. I mean, and it was quite impressive of the Science and Technology Minister, Naledi Pandor, who's very articulate, I must say. And she was even saying that, you know, this clean energy company which has been formed, it's a sort of public-private partnership, or at least a public-private effort involving Anglo-American Platinum and also a company called Altergy. They've got these two initiatives involving hydrogen, South Africa, and also clean energy. And this company has already sold 18 fuel cells for backup power to, you know, the mobile phone industry. So, and those fuel cells, they use platinum as a catalyst in the process. So, you know, this could open up a whole new world for us. I mean, fuel cells, really, the window is open. Can we get in fast enough? You can see that this initiative has been going on for 4 years, and they've managed to sell their first fuel cells. They've also managed to put fuel cells into locomotives on mines. They're talking about putting fuel cells into buildings like we're sitting in now, saying that, you know, you can generate your own clean electricity from these fuel cells. And who knows, one day, you know, instead of just having that dishwashing machine in our kitchen, we could have something that size, which is a power station, you know, for our house, and a fuel cell. So we could also in the garage have a car that is driven by a fuel cell. So the possibilities are huge. We just don't seem to be able to accelerate fast enough into that gap, but others in the world are getting into that, which is good for platinum, because most of the time it's unsubstitutable in terms of fuel cells, hydrogen fuel cells. You need that platinum. So that's a great advantage, and you can see that the minister reports that we've entered into an agreement with the Norwegians to make a material for which you store the hydrogen, because it's all hydrogen based, and that has been a bit of the retardant, you know, that we haven't got the hydrogen infrastructure. And then she climbed into titanium, you know, saying that we've got these mineral sands. We do produce a lot of titanium ore, from which you know, the titanium metal powder could be made. She wants to do that. So besides the beneficiation that is done by Richards Bay Minerals and the smelting process, and you know, converting those metals and adding some value, she wants to take a bigger leap, and she seems to be the champion there. But I think Department of Trade and Industry is also very keen on this, because they want to get to the point where you not only produce this metal powder, but you also produce products from it. So that's very ambitious, because sometimes that's a difficult ask. But they're looking to the aerospace industry. You know, satellites need titanium, aircraft need titanium. They're enthusiastic about it, but I'm sure many a slip between cup and lip. I mean, there's still a lot of complexities that perhaps, you know, have been overlooked. But that's another one, titanium, and a pilot plant coming through, because the CSR has got an innovative method, they believe, that can give us a comparative advantage of processing that ore to metal. So hopefully something comes of that. And then, you know, we're sitting on the world's biggest reserves of fluorspar. And so if we can go into those fluorspar-related chemicals, there's already an initiative along those lines. You know, next year there's supposed to be a company which is listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, which will not only mine the fluorspar, which they're already involved with, you know, 80 kilometers outside Pretoria, but also then down at Ekindustria, taking that and doing more with it and creating these fluoride chemicals that are quite valuable and used in a lot of different applications, not the least being, you know, for antiretrovirals for HIV and AIDS. So it would be very good for South Africa to be able to do that with its fluorspar. So those are 3 areas they're talking about. And in each of those, we're fairly dominant. I mean, in platinum, very dominant, with by far the world's biggest reserves, over 80%. In titanium, the second biggest in terms of reserves, and then fluorspar, again, biggest reserves.
Now, the minister also mentioned the unfortunate sort of gap between skills and innovative research and technology.
Yeah, particularly those coming in from India at this conference. They were saying, look, guys, you know, why are the developing countries, why are they so hamstrung? Haven't got the skills. So they were even saying, we're going to dish out some bursaries here. You know, we want people to come in, and we'll, all expenses paid, you know, we'll get them moving into areas of looking to convert natural resources in a way that will add value for developing countries. And they didn't mention the number, but it seems that they're prepared to fund the Indians, quite a substantial number of people from all over the developing world, to try and get those skills going. And I wish more people would do that, because skills are so important. I mean, if you've got those skills, that's why the developed world always wins. Because the undeveloped world has got the raw materials, but they haven't got the skills, and they often haven't got the infrastructure, and they haven't got the energy in terms of electricity, etc. Whereas the developed world has got that, and they've got plenty of skills, and that's how they outwit us. So we need to get that sort of balance and look to, you know, locking on some sort of schools addendum, you know, like the Germans do. You work, but then you go through a theoretical training while you're working. Like you take 2 weeks off to do the theory, and then you go back for a couple of months, and then you take weeks off to do the theory. It's great to do that on the job, and I'm sure they could bolt on some of these things to many of our mines and other enterprises, so that we've got the skills base coming through. We've got the career paths. You know, people are complaining. Like one of the ministers of religion at that post-mortem in Marikana, you know, he's saying, I live in Marikana, and now a lot of the people that have been killed in this massacre or tragedy, whatever people call it, a lot of people want to call it a massacre because I think there are certain aspects to it that do indicate that. Now, when it came to burial time, you know, they found that more than, well, a large number of them were from the Eastern Cape. They got buried in the Eastern Cape. So it's not as if these people live around the mine. And then as a gesture of goodwill, when you have a death in the family, the mines have traditionally said to the family, look, you know, we're very, very sorry that this person has been killed. You may now nominate another member of your family to come and take that person's place, you know, who's died, so that that bread-winning money still comes in. And he's saying, you know, that's a fantastic gesture. But what he's seeing is that, like, this minimally educated father, he was working in this mine, and he was like career-wise on his way to nowhere, you know. And then now you get this young son coming in, and he gets back on the treadmill, and then he goes on this journey to nowhere. And he's saying, you know, you need to give these people a career path. You need to say to them, hey, look, you can be a shift boss, then you can be a supervisor, and tell them, listen, you can be the CEO here. You must start working, you know, so that they've got some vision. So hopefully through the education process, you could possibly even do a lot more research on mines. You know, like you have academic hospitals, possibly bolt on an academic research type institute on maybe very narrow research, but something that's going to benefit the mines directly and give people another incentive to do better within that environment. So skills, huge.
The apprentice maybe could come back?
Well, apprentices, I mean, that's what a person was saying the other day. You know, we used to have military conscription, and, you know, you had to go if you were balloted. Perhaps they should say to people, and maybe even some form of conscription, you know, if you haven't got a job, call us, because we now want to train you. We want to turn you into something of your choice. Do you want to be a boiler maker? Do you want to be an electrician? Do you want to do welding? It would be so worthwhile, you know.
Those are the skills we don't have.
Those are the skills that we need. And perhaps just in the interim, some sort of almost mandatory training process, but a good one, you know. I mean, and when you think of the technology available, and the world's best lecturers, you know, could be coming through to you on a big screen, and you could be having the benefit of that sort of tuition. So that there is an opportunity in the world to do that. Hopefully, you know, we take a step change now, and we get rid of this 100 years of legacy, which has held us back, and we upskill people. And as you say, in those apprentice jobs, that would be vital.
And those technology innovations can be powered by fuel cells.
Yes, and people are, exactly. And people are talking, especially on mines. And yeah, so there's a whole host of opportunities that I think await us. And it does look like people want to enter a new era with this, because you can't have what we've had in the past.
Well, thank you very much, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Shannon.
That's the show for today. Join us again next time for more news and insights into what's happening in the mining world.